So here you are. You're thinking about getting that iPhone. Why? Maybe you're a senior, the victim of macular degeneration, or cataracts, or some other eye disease that afflicts so many of us older Americans. Maybe you're a kid just starting to explore technology, or a teenager. You're technically proficient with the computer. You might even have a smartphone, but you've heard all kinds of things about the iPhone. Regardless of your situation, you're apprehensive. You're uncertain about whether or not to take the leap. There's so many reasons to be uncertain.
The first time I saw the iPhone, it was during a demonstration, and the person was up there saying, you just swipe here, flip here.
Jeff Thompson.
And all I could think of was those science projects where the monkey put the circle into the circle and got the banana. And I thought, wow, this is really weird.
So many reasons to hesitate.
I didn't want to go through these, sit, stay, roll over. Good, there's your reward type of thing.
Or maybe you've even tried an iOS device before.
My first iOS device was an iPad, the very first one that came out.
That's Dave Dominic.
I went to the Apple store and bought it. When I got it home, I was looking at this thing. It was a flat piece of glass. I didn't know anything about voiceover or how it would work on a flat item that you touch with your finger. So it was very intimidating in that respect.
I got an iPhone, and when it came in the mail, I looked at this thing and took it out of the box, and it was this big old flat thing with no buttons.
And Sue Metcalf.
And I'm like, I can't use this. Oh my goodness, I can't, And I didn't know how to turn on voiceover. It didn't speak, it didn't talk, it didn't do nothing. This thing ain't got no buttons. How are you supposed to use the thing?
But Dave and Sue both found their devices difficult to use.
Now, I'd used JAWS on the PC, so I knew about screen readers, and I thought, well, I'm going to give this a try. But once I set it up, which required sighted assistance, I started flicking around and touching around here and there and just experimenting with it. It's very hard to get it to do what I wanted it to do.
So after giving it a try,
I gave up after about a week. I took it back.
And so I took it back because I looked at that phone. I'm like, no, we're not doing this. I was happy with my Sprint phone. So at least it's got buttons,
These three people have something in common. They were all hesitant to jump in and buy an iPhone. But these three people also have something else in common. They came back. They're now iPhone users.
I bought the iPhone 3GS.
My friend Peggy had an iPhone. She says, oh, Sue, they got the 3GS for free with a 2-year contract. So I went over there, I got my phone, and I said, okay, if Peggy and them can do it, other blind people can do it, well, so can I.
Then I realized it's more accessible than my LG phone was because it did more than just read the menus. It actually was like a miniature computer.
Just as Sue rose to the challenge, Dave and Jeff, too, found ways to embrace this new device.
Once I bought the iPhone 3GS, I felt much more comfortable with navigating around and how to do it. I didn't have a lot of trouble learning the gestures and things like that.
Once I did get the iPhone, I do remember the simplicity of tinkering with it. You can tinker and tinker with this and keep moving around and figure things out, and it works great for my brain, my thought processing.
But the decision to buy the iPhone didn't come easily, and it didn't come without some outside influence.
Read up on it, started looking for some resources, and got familiar with the gestures and how it was going to work and that type of thing before I bought it.
I was teaching woodshop at Blind Incorporated, and one of the students pulls out this device and was on a website, and then went over to his mail and got a message. He was trying to find some information for his project, and I could hear it clear as a bell. Now, I've seen demonstrations, but with all that in the palm of his hand, that's something I wanted.
But whether you haven't yet bought your first iPhone and you're still considering it, or you've already taken the plunge, you could sure use some help, couldn't you?
I know with technology, people get very intimidated. They're scared to click and flick, and I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to break it.
That's Nick D'Ambrosio.
I learned right off the bat in the first few hours when I was flicking and flicking and starting to get the hang of it, and I found that it was very easy to use. It's not like a computer where you can get a virus or something horrible might happen to your iPhone if you just press the wrong button. It was an easy process to just play with it for hours and really get the hang of it. Once that phobia was out of my head, I think playing with the phone and just exploring features was the biggest thing to get the fear out of my head.
Jay Ireland sure could have used some help.
It was so frustrating at first because I thought, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have to figure out how to manage it. And I think my first night I managed to call a A friend of mine that didn't know I had a new phone, I glossed my finger over the name and the call was made, was like, oh no, I didn't think that I was going to be calling somebody. I had to apologize profusely because it was like 11:30 their time. I was so embarrassed. I thought I was never going to get a handle on this. Most of what I kind of found out, I just knew by doing and asking, and then I actually got a book on it, and that helped, but by that time, I was already kind of well into the process.
Help can come in many forms. It may be a friend who lends a helping hand. It may be a video that you see on YouTube, or it may be a group who meets in your community to talk about all things iOS. It might be a podcast, or it might be a book about the iPhone. Regardless of the type of help that you receive, rest assured that it makes the transition easier. Whether the transition relates to making the decision to buy your first iPhone or to learning VoiceOver, the screen reader that's built into all iOS devices. The purpose of this podcast series is to pull together any and all types of assistance that we can muster to help you make those transitions. So for now, sit back and relax as we present iPhone 101 from Blind Abilities. So you still haven't purchased that first iPhone. You're on the fence, but you need a little reassurance to get you over the hump. Well, today we'll talk about resources. Resources are things that you can go to help you make that decision. That decision might be to go ahead, take the plunge, purchase your first iPhone. Or it might be to sit back and wait a while, or to pass altogether. We are here to give you information, and as they say, information is knowledge. Specifically in this segment, we'll talk about books that are specifically aimed at new iPhone users or people who haven't yet made that decision. So let's get right to it. I'm currently in my Safari browser. The Safari browser is the web browser that's built into the iPhone. I'm in a text field, and I'll go ahead and dictate the search terms that I want to use. National Braille Press.
Inserted. National Braille Press. Go.
Now I'm going to adjust my rotor, which also will be covered in more detail later, to allow me to navigate down through this list of options that Google has offered to me as a result of my search. So let me flip to Headings.
Words, lines, speaking rate, headings.
There we go. Now I can flip down my screen with one finger and get to all of the options which the Google search engine has provided.
National Braille Press. Heading level 3. Link.
And here we have the National Braille Press, nbp.org. I will use my handy-dandy single-finger double tap to activate this link, and it should take me right to the website.
National Braille Press. National Braille Press Springboard Consulting's mission is to mainstream people with disabilities in the global workforce, workplace, and marketplace.
And here's a brief mission of the National Braille Press, but where we want to go today is to their bookstore.
Our bookstore. Heading level 2.
There we go. Now I'll use my other handy-dandy flick to the right with a single finger just to flip through some of the headings until we get to
All books. Link. Hot off the press. Link. Browse by category. Link. Adult books. Heading level 3.
Adult books. There we go. And I'll flick a couple of times to show you that there are categories within the adult book section.
Computers and technology. Link. Bullet. Home and health. Link. Bullet. Literature and poetry. Link.
But what we want is
Computers and technology. Link.
Yeah, computers and technology. Now I'll use my single finger double tap to select that option.
Adult books. Computers and technology. Heading level 1.
Now there are a lot of books in this particular category. For example,
Anyone can play. Accessible games for the iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch.
Anyone Can Play. It's about iOS gaming.
Select format. Braille. $12. Add to cart. Button.
And as you can hear, you can select your format and it gives you the price of that particular book. But let's keep going. I'll flick to a couple of more.
Computers you can talk to. Siri, Alexa, Google Now. Braille. $12.
Computers you can talk to. That's about Siri and a couple of other voice assistant type systems.
Everything you need to know to use the Mac with El Capitan and VoiceOver.
And then here's Learning the Mac. But the next one is one of the three which we want to focus on now.
Getting started with the iPhone and iOS 10.
Yes, Getting Started with the iPhone. This book is written by Anna Dresner, and it's updated each and every time the iOS operating system is updated. Here's a brief description.
This new edition of our Soup to Nuts tutorial for beginners contains everything you need to know to get started using the iPhone and the iOS 9 operating system. ASCII text download, $24.
And here's the price for the ASCII text version. There are a couple of other versions, but the price is $24. Now let me do a single finger double tap, and we'll take a quick detour to hear a little bit more detail about Anna Dresner's book.
If you like step-by-step tutorials, you'll appreciate the detailed way in which you're guided through setting up your phone, loading and backing up music, contacts, etc., placing calls, entering text, using the Bluetooth keyboard and braille display, and more. If you prefer to look up the commands you need, you'll love the first appendix, which lists every gesture and button on the phone in an organized manner so you can find the one you want. Other appendices include troubleshooting tips and a list of resources to help you learn more. Most of the book is relevant for iPod Touch users, and since the layout of many iPhone 6 Plus screens resembles that of corresponding iPad screens, iPad users should find this edition useful as well.
Okay, and now let's go back to the main bookstore page.
iOS 10 reference card.
And here's an addendum, also by Anna Dresner, which is a quick reference guide.
Anna Dresner has updated her iOS reference card for 10. Don't miss Anna Dresner's quick, handy guide to VoiceOver, Bluetooth keyboard, and Braille displays, all in one handy booklet. Keep it within reach. Braille, $8.
And this is available only in Braille, so you can keep it at your side as a quick reference guide. Now, here's the next book that we are recommending.
iOS 10 without the I.
Yes, iOS 10 Without the I by Jonathan Mosen.
iOS 10 is more powerful, more open, and more accessible than iOS has ever been, and, once again, Jonathan Mosen has written an easy-to-read book explaining it all.
This focuses on the iOS 10 operating system. It's a little bit more advanced, but still well within your reach as a prospective iPhone user or a brand new iPhone user.
Braille, $19.95.
And here's the price, $19.95. And again, I'll perform a single finger double tap here so we can hear a little bit more detail about Jonathan Mosen's book.
iOS 10, we're into double digits. iOS 10 is more powerful, more open, and more accessible than iOS has ever been, and, once again, Jonathan Mosen has written an easy-to-read book explaining it all. Siri has been declared open. What does it mean for you? What are the changes to the Messages, Health, and Maps apps? And how does the brand new Home app work? And what about the new, simpler method of moving apps? Get up and running quickly and easily with a clearly written, comprehensive, well-structured guide to all that's new in iOS 10 for the iPhone, iPod Touch, and iPad, written specifically with blind people and assistive technology instructors of the blind in mind.
Finally, there's another book that I want to recommend. The book is called iOS Access for All, and it's written by Shelley Brisbane. That's Shelley, Shelley, Brisbane, Brisbin. The book costs $20 and can be found at the following website, iosaccessbook.com. That's all one word, iosaccessbook.com. I'm not going to take you to that website, but it's very simple to navigate once you get there. I have recorded the table of contents of Shelley's book, and I'll play some of the contents for you right here.
Here's the table of contents for iOS Access for All, iOS 10 edition. Bullet Introduction, Bullet Part 1, Getting Started, Bullet Chapter 1, Accessibility, The Apple Way. White Bullet, Apple revolutionizes mobile access. White Bullet, today's iDevices, and iOS. White Bullet, the Apple ecosystem. White Bullet, Meet iOS accessibility features. White Bullet, what's new in iOS 10. Bullet Chapter 2, Orientation and Quick Start. White Bullet, iDevices 101. White Bullet, Parts of iOS. White Bullet, Choose how to set up iOS. White Bullet, Accessibility Quick Start. Bullet Chapter 4, Low Vision Access. White Bullet, iOS Low Vision Challenges. White Bullet, Screen Magnification. Bullet Chapter 6, Tools for Hearing Impaired Users. Bullet Chapter 7, Physical and Learning Access.
As you can hear, she focuses on iOS access for everybody, not just for blind and visually impaired iPhone users. But there's quite a bit of material that will be helpful for blind users. I'll skip over some of the other chapters that relate to other disabilities.
Bullet Appendix A, VoiceOver Gestures. Bullet Appendix B, VoiceOver Keyboard Commands. Bullet Appendix 100, Braille Commands. Bullet Appendix 500, Set up a new iOS device with VoiceOver.
Here are some of the appendices, which are very helpful when you're dealing with these particular purposes. So I happen to have Shelley's book on my iPhone. It's housed in an app called Voice Dream Reader. Voice Dream Reader is an app that converts different types and different styles of material into very understandable audio text. I'll play a sample of Shelley's book for you right now.
Chapter 2, Orientation and Quick Start. Before we dig into the accessibility features of your iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch in detail, I want to introduce you to the devices themselves, and give you a primer on how iOS works. Books and tutorials intended for a mainstream audience provide more detail about iOS features, separate from accessibility, and I encourage you to read them. My goal in this chapter is to offer an accessible perspective, and to help you become comfortable with your device and with iOS, so you can focus on getting the most from whichever accessibility features you use. This orientation section will be most helpful if you've never used an iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch before. After your iOS orientation, you'll hit the ground running by setting up accessibility features. I'll show you where to find these options, and how to enable them. When you're finished with this quick start, you won't know everything about your iDevice, but you will understand it a little better, and be able to apply what you know in an accessible way. More detailed discussion of all accessibility features awaits in chapters 3 through 7. In this chapter, you'll learn about controls on your iOS device, parts of iOS installation, options enabling accessibility features, iDevices 101. iOS devices come in several sizes, and their hardware features vary slightly. All of them, iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch, use the same iOS software. Once you've used one iOS device, you won't struggle when you encounter other models.
As you can hear, Shelley lays the framework for a lot of the specifics that she gets into later in the book. In summary, we have recommended 3 major books and the quick reference guide by Anna Dresner. I happen to have all of these books and have used them on occasion for various purposes. If you are on the verge of making that decision, one or more of these books may just help you make that decision one way or another. If you've already bought your first iPhone, I guarantee that one or all of these books will help you become familiar with VoiceOver and learn all about your iPhone. But in the meantime, stay tuned, keep it right here at Blind Abilities, because there's plenty more coming. Join Blind Abilities and our new series, iPhone 101, as we help you make that decision to buy your first iPhone, as we answer those pressing questions about which device to buy and where to buy it. And as we help you with the transition of learning to use VoiceOver and master the iPhone as a blind user. Where do you go to find those answers? Who do you turn to for help? Blind Abilities presents a new series, iPhone 101. We'll provide the answers. We'll be here to help.